Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Today, I've got a story that I think will truly resonate with all of us, especially in our fast-paced lives. It's called The Boy Who Skipped Tomorrow. Imagine a little town, nestled between emerald hills and a winding river. In this town lived a boy named Alex. Alex was a bright kid, full of curiosity, but he had one peculiar habit. He was always focused on the asterisk next asterisk thing. He'd rush through his breakfast, thinking about playtime. During playtime, he'd already be planning his dinner. And at dinner, his mind would be on the stories his grandma told before bed. He wasn't malicious, just incredibly forward-looking. If you asked him about today, he'd always tell you about tomorrow. Tomorrow, I'll build the biggest fort, he'd declare, even as he was barely halfway through today's small block tower. Tomorrow, I'll finally master riding my bike without training wheels, he'd exclaim, while still struggling with today's wobbly pedals. His friends would often tease him. Alex, are you even asterisk here asterisk? This habit, at first, seemed harmless. It made him a dreamer, a planner. But slowly, it began to affect his experiences. One sunny afternoon, his best friend Leo found a rare four-leaf clover. Look, Alex. It's supposed to bring good luck, Leo exclaimed, holding it up proudly. Alex glanced at it, but then quickly said, "That's cool. Tomorrow, let's go find a whole field of them." He missed the simple joy of that single, special moment. Another time, his teacher, Ms. Evelyn, brought in a tiny, fluffy duckling for show and tell. The entire class was mesmerized, oohing and awing over its soft feathers and adorable waddle. Alex, however, was already thinking, tomorrow, I bet it'll be big enough to swim in the pond. He barely touched its soft down, missing the warmth and fragile life in his hands. His parents started to notice too. His mom would bake his favorite chocolate chip cookies, still warm from the oven. "Try one, sweetie," she'd say. Alex would take a bite, but before he could savor the melting chocolate, he'd say, "These are great. Tomorrow, can we bake a triple batch?" The present taste, the moment of shared warmth, would simply float by. His dad, a keen gardener, once showed Alex a tiny sprout pushing through the soil. "This is going to be a beautiful sunflower, son," he explained. Alex nodded, but his thoughts were on the fully grown, towering flower, not the miracle of the tiny green shoot. As Alex grew a little older, this skipping tomorrow became more pronounced. He'd rush through school projects, focusing on the finished product and the grade, rather than the learning process. He'd talk about the fun he'd have next weekend, instead of enjoying the current afternoon with his family. He was always chasing the horizon, never quite appreciating the ground beneath his feet. One day, his wise old grandmother, Nana Rose, who always seemed to see more than she let on, sat him down. "Alex, my dear," she began, her eyes twinkling, "do you know why today is called the present?" Alex, already thinking about the new video game coming out next month, shrugged. "Because it's a gift, sweetheart," she said softly. "Every single moment, every sunrise, every laugh, every quiet afternoon, it's a gift. And if you're always looking for tomorrow, you might miss all the beautiful presents today has for you." Her words, gentle as they were, struck a chord. Alex had never thought of it that way. He considered all the moments he'd rushed through, the clovers he hadn't fully appreciated, the ducklings he hadn't truly felt, the cookies he hadn't savored, the sprouts he hadn't watched grow. He realized he was living in a constant state of anticipation, and in doing so, he was letting life's most precious moments slip through his fingers. He wasn't asterisk experiencing asterisk life. He was merely asterisk, waiting asterisk for it. The next morning, something shifted. When his mom offered him breakfast, instead of thinking about playtime, he looked at his plate, the perfectly cooked scrambled eggs, the toast spread with jam. "Et took," Abite slowly, tasting each ingredient, feeling the warmth. "This is delicious, Mom," he said, genuinely. His mom smiled, surprised and pleased. Later, playing with Leo, he focused on building their fort, brick by brick, imagining each new section. when a bird landed nearby. Instead of wondering about the next big adventure, he simply watched it, admiring its colorful feathers. He even went back to his dad's garden and spent a quiet half-hour, just observing the tiny sunflower sprout, marveling at its slow, steady growth. It wasn't an overnight change, but a conscious effort. Alex started practicing what Nana Rose called present living. He learned to listen intently when his friends spoke, truly seeing their expressions and sharing their joy. He started taking his time with his homework, not just to get it done, but to understand the concepts. He savored his meals, noticed the beauty of the sunset, and appreciated the warmth of a hug. He discovered that tomorrow would always come, but it would come even richer and more fulfilling if he hadn't skipped all the beautiful days leading up to it. He learned that happiness wasn't just in the grand plans for the future, but in the countless small, precious moments that make up our daily lives. So, what does the boy who skipped tomorrow teach us? It's a powerful reminder that while planning for the future is important, living fully in the present is where true joy and connection reside. Each today is a unique canvas, waiting for us to paint it with our full attention and appreciation. Don't let the anticipation of tomorrow rob you of the beauty and gifts that today offers. Let's embrace every moment, every small wonder, every interaction, and truly experience the life unfolding right now. Because when we do that, we don't just live, we thrive. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to Alex's story. If this resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What's one today you're going to savor? Don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who might need to hear it, and if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you don't miss our next story or discussion. Until next time, keep living fully and beautifully. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. If you've ever looked in the mirror and felt like it was showing you something totally different from what you felt inside, or maybe even what others saw, then you're going to want to stick around for today's story. We all have those moments, right, where our reflection just doesn't quite match our perception. Sometimes it's a good thing. Sometimes it makes you wonder what's really going on. Today, I've got a tale for you that dives deep into that very idea. It's a story where the mirror, usually a trusty friend, became an enigma, holding secrets and revealing truths that nobody expected. So, settle in, grab a snack, and let's dive into a world where perception, reality, and a single looking glass blur the lines in the most fascinating way. This is The Mirror Told a Different Story. Our story begins in a quiet, sun-drenched town nestled beside a whispering river. A place where days unfolded with a gentle rhythm and secrets were as rare as a winter storm. In this charming town lived a young woman named Elara. Elara was known for her kindness, her infectious laugh, and her ability to find beauty in the simplest things. She ran a small, cozy bakery, and her cinnamon rolls were legendary, often selling out before noon. Everyone adored Elara. They saw her as the embodiment of warmth and light, a true gem in their community. She was always quick with a smile, a comforting word, or a helping hand. To the townspeople, Elara was perfect, almost ethereal in her grace and unwavering positivity. However, Elara herself didn't quite see that person. Every morning, before the first rays of sun kissed the sleepy rooftops, Elara would stand before an antique full-length mirror in her quaint cottage. It was an old piece, inherited from her grandmother, with an ornate, dark wooden frame carved with blooming roses and winding vines. As she looked into it, she saw a different Ella, not the confident, radiant woman the town saw, but someone filled with doubts, anxieties, and a persistent whisper of not enough. In the mirror, her bright smile often felt forced, her laughter a performance. Her eyes, which sparkled with joy for others, sometimes held a flicker of deep-seated worry when she met her own gaze. She saw the tiny flaws, the moments of hesitation, the unspoken fears that she carefully hid from the world. The Elara in the mirror was a quiet observer of her own carefully constructed persona. She yearned for a deeper connection, a freedom from the constant need to be the strong one, the always happy one. One crisp autumn morning, a new resident arrived in town. His name was Silas, a traveler, and an artist who had chosen their peaceful village as his new home. Silas was quiet, observant, and had eyes that seemed to see beyond the surface of things. He rented a small studio space, not far from Alara's bakery, and soon, like everyone else, he found himself drawn to her warmth and delicious pastries. Silas, however, had a unique perspective. As an artist, he saw the world in shades and textures, in unspoken emotions and hidden depths. He quickly noticed the discrepancies between how others perceived Alara and the subtle nuances he observed in her. He saw the fleeting shadows in her eyes when she thought no one was looking, the slight tension in her shoulders even when she was smiling, the almost imperceptible hesitation before she offered another person comfort. He would sit in her bakery, sketching, sometimes of the patrons, sometimes of the patterns of light on the wooden tables. But often, he found his gaze drifting towards Alara. He saw her kindness, yes, but he also saw the effort behind it, the quiet determination to uplift everyone around her, even if it meant burying her own feelings. He saw a complex individual, a masterpiece of emotions, not just a flawless painting. One afternoon, Silas approached Alara. He wasn't there for a pastry, though he did compliment her currant scones. He simply looked at her, his artist's gaze thoughtful and gentle. "Alara," he began, his voice soft. "You know, your smile lights up this whole town. But sometimes," he paused, choosing his words carefully, "sometimes I feel like it's a very generous gift you give, even when you might need some of that light for yourself." Alara was taken aback. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Most people simply absorbed her warmth, never questioning its source or its cost. For a moment, she felt a pang of defensiveness, then a strange sense of relief. It was as if a tiny crack had appeared in the perfectly polished surface she presented to the world, allowing a sliver of fresh air in. She managed a small, slightly wobbly smile. "What do you mean, Silas?" she asked, her voice softer than usual. Silas gestured vaguely with his charcoal-stained hand. "As an artist, I see layers. People often show the world what they want it to see, or what they think it expects. But there's always more, isn't there? More depth, more color, more reality." He met her gaze directly, without judgment. "You're a beautiful person, Alara. But I wonder if the mirror you look into every day shows you all of that beauty, or if it only shows you the parts you're still learning to love." His words resonated with Alara in a way nothing ever had before. They echoed the quiet voice she heard when she stood before her own antique mirror each morning. The realization hit her with surprising force. Perhaps the mirror was unshowing her a different story, because it was deceptive, but because it was showing her a truth that she herself had been overlooking or denying. That evening, Alara returned to her cottage with Silas's words swirling in her mind. As the last embers of sunset faded, casting long, dramatic shadows, she stood before her grandmother's mirror once more. This time, she didn't just look at her reflection. She truly saw it, not as a critic, but as an observer, much like Silas. She looked at her eyes, not just seeing the hidden worries, but also the deep wells of empathy and resilience that allowed her to care for others so wholeheartedly. She saw the slight curve of her lips, not as a forced smile, but as a testament to her courage in choosing joy even when things were tough. She looked at her posture, noticing the subtle tension, but also the strength and determination that had carried her through every challenge. The mirror, for the first time, didn't feel like an adversary. It felt like a silent witness, holding up not just her perceived flaws, but also her undeniable strengths, her quiet triumphs, her authentic self, messy and magnificent all at once. The different story it told wasn't one of deception, but of a more profound truth, one that she had been too busy portraying a perfect facade to fully acknowledge. She realized that the townspeople's adoration wasn't entirely misplaced. They saw her light, yes, but they hadn't seen the depth from which that light truly originated. And the Alara in the mirror, the one she had always judged so harshly, was actually the most real version of herself, waiting to be fully accepted and understood. The mirror wasn't lying. It was simply reflecting what she brought to it, and what she was finally ready to see. It showed her the Alara, who was striving, growing, and profoundly human. And that was a story far more beautiful and complex than any perfect facade. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into Alara's world. It's a story that reminds us how perception can be so powerful, and how sometimes The truest reflections are found not just in glass, but in the eyes of those who truly see us, and in the quiet moments when we bravely choose to see ourselves. If you enjoyed this tale, please consider hitting that like button, sharing it with a friend who might need to hear it, and subscribing to the channel for more stories that make you think and feel. Your support means the world to me, and I can't wait to share our next adventure with you.